When it goes right, it is absolutely wonderful.
We've definitely got a racehorse. He just glides.
You know, putting two horses on a two box isn't going to pass a weighbridge.
Hello and welcome to the Thoroughbred Breeders podcast, brought to you by the Thoroughbred Breeders Association. I'm Naomi Mellor, CEO of the TBA, and it's my pleasure to be your host today. At the TBA, we are here to support you, to help you learn, to nurture your interest, and to answer any questions you may have as you breed, care for, and maintain your passion for these wonderful animals. We're also all about growing the fantastic community that exists in thoroughbred breeding wherever you are in the world. In each episode, we'll be discussing developments, news, stories, and experiences, and helping you to feel connected to our work and your community. You can follow us on socials at thetba.gb, and do feel free to email us. We'd love to hear from you, and we're at info@thetba.co.uk. Now, on with the show.
So equine transport regulations sounds a bit dry, right? But actually it's really, really, really important. There's a lot of it that happens. There's a lot of people moving mares and foals and other stock on their own lorries, but there's an awful lot to know on this area. And things are changing all the time as well. So we know, and we are really aware at the TBA, that this can be quite a complicated area for our members. So with that in mind, I am joined today by Kevin Needham and Sandra Harper from BBA. They will be very well known to many people listening to this podcast. They've both been around in the industry for a fair while, I think it's fair to say. And Kevin in particular is somebody that I see a lot, and we are very grateful to for all of the advice that he gives us here at the TBA. So they have joined me today to talk about transporting horses and what you need to know. There is a lot of information out there, and as per usual, if you want more, there will be some links in the show notes that we will pop below, and we will talk about some of those resources as we go through. So, Kevin, can you just talk us a little bit at the beginning, fairly basic for anyone who doesn't know tons about transporting horses? What are the different sorts of lorries that you might be dealing with? We're particularly talking about two boxes today. What sort of weights do people need to be aware of, and how does that all work?
The two boxes largely become ubiquitous in the industry because it doesn't require an operator's license at the moment. It doesn't require a tachograph at the moment. And looking forward, we're a couple of years away from probably needing one in the UK, but the EU are introducing some legislation that requires two boxes to have tachos to go into the EU. Now, the tacho is not the only issue that you're likely to have. I think the first problem with we started off by calling them two boxes, but these things are generally overweight with two horses on, and people need to be very conscious that a vehicle that weighs 2.5 tons empty doesn't take two 500-kilo horses and pass a weighbridge, because they're going to put diesel in it, they're going to put water in it, they're going to put people in it, and it's very easy to stack one of these up with a bit of tack, a bit of fodder, a couple of mares, a couple of people, and you're suddenly 4 tons. And in the past, we've been very lucky or the industry has been quite lucky that they've avoided pulling horse boxes onto weigh bridges because of the issues of dealing with the contents. If you pull a guy over, and it happened to me as a student, I was driving a wagon full of daffodil bulbs, and I got tugged onto a weigh bridge, and I was 10% overweight on one axle. That was easy. You just chuck a load of daffodil bulbs down the back of the lorry, and you pass the weighbridge, on you go. You get your caution. You end up being prosecuted for it. You get fined. With a horse, it's not quite so easy. You can't just tie it up at the weighbridge and carry on your way. You have to get another horse box. There's all the issues of the horses being detained at the weighbridge. So traditionally, that's not happened very much. But there have been a couple of well-known cases recently where 3.5-ton boxes have been tugged and found to be overweight, and it causes the driver gets quite a substantial fine, even though they don't have access to a weighbridge at the point of loading. So it's something that people really do need to be very, very conscious of. Putting two horses on a two box isn't going to pass a weighbridge, and if you get stopped, you will get fined.
And you mentioned there about tachographs, Kevin. For anyone who hasn't had a tacho in a wagon that they've had before or doesn't know what that is, can you just give us a really simple explanation of what a tachograph does and why people might need to be aware of those going forwards? You mentioned the EU there.
Yeah, well, the drivers out when somebody who isn't, if you are driving your own 3.5-ton box with your horse on it, you don't need to worry about driver's hours because that's social, domestic, and pleasure. Once you start to pay somebody, so a member of staff, a stud hand, somebody who works for you is driving that horse box, then driver's hours legislation applies. The tachograph is a way of measuring the number of hours that have been driven. Now, most people in the equine sector who send horses out on horse boxes don't keep domestic hours. There's two sets of legislation. Domestic hours legislation where it has to be written in a book. So the amount of time the person spent driving and doing other work should be recorded. And if you get a pull, they may well ask to see your domestic hours book, which my experience of the sector is people don't have them. They don't worry about things like that in our industry. The tachograph is a way of electronically recording that. It used to be a paper chart. Now it requires a digicard, which is downloadable. And the new smart tachos, scarily, can be downloaded remotely by surveillance units on bridges.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So they can tell straight away whether you've exceeded whether the driver's hours have been compromised within the last 30 days. Now, within the UK, we don't need to have tachographs fitted to 3.5-tonners, but the EU have now introduced legislation that says that non-EU 3.5-tonners entering the EU, so anybody going to France or Ireland, they need to have a tachograph fitted.
And I guess this is a real pertinent point for our members to be aware of, because there are plenty of people taking mares for cover in France and Ireland. And okay, we're at the end of the season now, but this is going to be in place by the time the next breeding season rolls round. And there's plenty of equine transportation that happens into and out of Ireland and France the rest of the year as well, Cohen.
Exactly. Now, you'd probably be, generalizing here, but you'd probably be okay taking your own mare on your own lorry into Ireland. I wouldn't be, because you can argue, the Irish are fairly flexible about these things. You can argue that it's a social, domestic, and pleasure movement, even though you're taking a mare for covering. Once you cross into France, you're in for a world of pain and misery. They are going to argue that it's a commercial operation and that you need a tacho, and they just won't let you in, or they'll pull you and they'll fine you. So it's actually it's a sort of scary new development, and is going to add quite a lot of cost. I mean, what's the retrofit on a tacho? Like 3,000 quid.
Yes, about £2,500. So it's quite an expensive bit of kit for a start.
And then, of course, you've got to keep. Then the driver then needs a digicard. The driver then also will need a driver CPC.
Yeah. We also need downloading software to be able to download the information off your digital tachograph, and you also need to analyze that to make sure you're running within the work rules.
Blimey, Sandra, so just to recap on what you just said there, all new wagons going forwards are going to have tachographs fitted into them, 3.5-tonners and upwards, but you can retrofit them as well. If you've got an existing box that you will need a tacho to go into, you can have them retrofitted as well. And Sandra, I know you've just done some recent certification and you've been busying away in the background there. Do you want to talk a little bit about the people side of things and what members need to be aware of from the people perspective, particularly if you're employing people, like Kevin said?
Yeah, I think you need to be aware. The drivers are going to need drivers digicards. They're very simple to get. It's only a matter of applying for one from the DVLA. But they are going to need those. They're also going to need their driver's CPC. So they're going to have to...
And what's the CPC? Can you just tell us about that?
It's just to say that they're professionally competent in driving.
Okay.
So that's standardly, that's a 5-day course of them sitting either on a Zoom or going into a classroom. And then they get another card for that. So then that means they're professionally certified to drive. So you've got a driver's CPC, the driver's card, and then you're going to have to worry about driver's hours, which is something that a lot of studs and things wouldn't ever have thought about before. It means that a driver can only drive a maximum of 9 hours a day. And also they can extend that twice a week to 10 hours a day. But I mean, that does limit you fairly as to where you can get to. After driving for 4.5 hours, they have to have a 45-minute break.
Mm.
You can have 2 drivers on a lorry, which extends your hours to 21. But then if you've got 2 boxes, that second driver has to have a space to be able to rest while in the vehicle. So a lot of 2 boxes obviously wouldn't have that space. So, you can't argue out that fact. So a lot of people wouldn't be able to use the 21-hour driver's rules.
No, sure. So you've talked about the kind of 8-hour journey. So there's type 1 journeys up to 8 hours, type 2 after that.
And that's beyond warfare now. This is a different set of regulations.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. Talk to me about that, Kevin, because I feel like I'm somebody who could very much fall into this hole. Go on.
We're now on to long journey and short journey vehicle certification and driver and attendant certification. Now, there's always been an exemption for social, domestic and pleasure. So once again, you or I taking our own pony, horse, going hunting, doing what we're doing, we're exempt from, we don't need to have, we're considered to be a natural person for the horse. We don't need to be certified. Once the journey becomes commercial, so either you're being paid to drive the lorry or it's going to the races, going for covering, those sort of things, the driver needs to be certified. And this came in about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
There was as we've discussed, there was a case recently of a horse box going to the races. I think it was Uttoxeter, and they got a tug, and nobody had a welfare certificate because when the legislation came in, there was a big fuss made about it. Lots of people got certified. There were courses run at the racing school. We all did it. But some of those people drop out of the industry, and what's not happened is the industry has failed to keep up. So when new starters come in, nobody thinks, I need to get them to the racing school or one of the racing schools to do their long journey or short journey certification. I mean, you may as well do the long journey one because it's the same syllabus.
Yeah.
The long one, you have to have a small practical test. And of course, the vehicle needs a certificate as well. That applies to 2 boxes, doesn't it?
That applies to 2 boxes, yeah.
Because if you're going long journeys, you have to have fans that can move a certain amount of air, temperature recording devices, and you have to have your ramp angles measured and things like that. It's not terribly difficult to get a 2 box to pass, provided it's fitted with fans and a temperature recording equipment. But to satisfy the welfare legislation, those are 2 certificates you need to have. In addition, if you're going into Europe and you've got a tachograph, you're going to need a driver CPC and a DigiCard.
And the European certificates.
And your European certificate, because we're no longer in the EU.
Yeah.
So the certificate you get from the racing school, or one of the racing schools, or an agricultural college, or another educational provider, is a UK only certificate.
Yeah.
And in order to move horses in the EU, you need to have an EU certificate. Now, whilst EU operators, the UK reciprocates, bizarrely.
Yes.
So if you're an Irish transporter and you've got an Irish welfare certificate,
Yep.
our government will just issue you with a UK one because you've already passed the test.
Yeah.
Europeans don't do that. We have to do their course as well, which means, the system that most of the professional sector uses is a sort of Zoom course.
A Zoom course. So it's run by a company called Gills in Ireland. So it's a Zoom course. It takes about an hour, and it has a practical exam afterwards, which you email over to them. They mark you, and then you get your certificate.
Okay, so in summary, if for the UK, you need a welfare certificate and a transportation certificate, and if you're going to the EU, you need the same again, but for the EU.
The horse box needs to be inspected as well.
Yeah. Okay. So quite a lot of boxes to tick here, aren't there?
And of course, you can't do the horse box. Whilst you can do the driver welfare cert by Zoom,
The horse box can't be examined by Zoom, so the horse box has to go to Ireland and be examined at the docks.
Okay. So, and can people, just for clarification, can people do that during a journey, or do you have to make a special visit?
Special visit.
Special visit. Okay, right. So,
Your certificates have to be in place by the time you arrive to Europe. So this all has to be done before you even start a journey.
So I think basically the bottom line is this requires a bit of pre-consideration for people, doesn't it? That unless we're doing transportation of horses that you own, like Kevin said, social, domestic, or pleasure, then if there's any kind of involvement or employment of people or involvement of your staff, it does require a bit of forethought to be getting all of the ducks in a row on this.
Exactly.
And especially if you are going to Ireland or France, the changes in the taco legislation which are coming up, and that was one of the many reasons for having this conversation, is definitely something for people to be aware of, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, going into Ireland, you can probably it would be easier to have a discussion that this is your own horse and it's not a commercial journey, and they may accept that. Going into France, you have no chance.
No.
You really do need to have it all in place, and it is just so much easier to, if you're going to do both. If you're going to do one, you're likely to do the other. You may as well get all the certificates in place and just run it correctly, because there's no point going to Ireland on a whim and then thinking you can do the same to France. If you're going to go to France, you've got to get the certificates. So you may as well just plan ahead and have it all in place, keep it up to date.
And this definitely applies to training yards as well as studs as well. You know, obviously we're in the breeding sector and we talk a lot about transportation of mares and foals and potentially stallions as well. But actually, for people moving racehorses, this is massively relevant as well, isn't it? And, you know, we have these conversations with the NTF from time to time. But I think raising awareness across the industry is definitely part of the role of this conversation as well.
Yes.
Just finally, where would we advise people to go and look? Sandra, you mentioned the government website before. We will link to the BBA website, but where do you send people to say, here's some good basic knowledge about all of this if looking at transportation and transport legislation is something that needs to cross people's radar?
Yeah, I think you need to look at both the Irish government website is also very good. So if you're looking at, so here it is. If you Google transport of horses on the Irish government website, that comes up with a whole section about their rules and regulations, which is obviously a lot easier to read the French as they run on the same regulations. So obviously the government website, Gill's Driving School in Ireland, they are brilliant for doing the EU certification. Very simple. On Zoom, and their website has some good information on it as well. So I think both the government websites, obviously the British Racing School, they still run the courses, so they have quite a lot of information on their website as well.
Amazing. So yeah, and if you have any questions, do you give us a ring? I can't guarantee that we'll be able to answer them in the TBA offices, but we will be able to point you in the right direction of somebody who can. Most people
will probably have Sandra or my number, so we're always happy to field a question.
Yeah, well, that's very kind, Kevin. Everybody listening, you know where BBA are. Your phones will be inundated, I'm sure, after this. Lovely. Thank you both so much. That's really useful, and we will look forward to seeing you soon.
I'm absolutely delighted to be joined this morning by a man who needs absolutely no introduction to most people listening to this podcast, and that is owner and breeder Robert Waley-Cohen. He has been a winner of the Grand National, the Gold Cup, the King George, and many other races alongside. He is the delightful owner of Upton Viva Stud, which is in Oxfordshire. And he has been breeding and racing horses for very, very many years now. He bought and established Upton Viva in 2001. And so, yes, 25-year anniversary this year, Robert. So it's a big turning point, that is. And I am thrilled that he's joined us today. He was Breeder of the Month just recently as he bred Charisma Cat, who we are going to talk about as well. So, Robert, how did you first get into breeding horses, or what drew you into that in the first? Because owning is one thing, but breeding is quite another. What got you started?
Well, breeding is a long-term project, because from the moment you decide you'd like to breed to the moment you actually have a runner is probably about 5 years. So you have to really want to do it. And I sort of been saying, oh, it'd be really fun to breed. And I had my youngest son, who actually was extremely ill, said, well, get on with it. if you know enough, you've got some space to do it, and so just what's holding you back? What's going to be the promotion? What's actually going to stimulate you to actually do it when you can do it now? So do it. So that I thought, well, after one or two mishits, the idea was to say to David Minton and Anthony Bromlick, where we're going to find a horse, and they said the Irish aren't going to sell very good horses. The French have some really nice mares, and they will be happy to sell them because they don't feel like they're selling their seed corn. So the first time we had a success was over there. We brought some mares over there, ran them in France first because we bought them as youngsters, and then brought them back and started breeding from them.
And you've got a very boutique, I love the word boutique. You've got a very boutique selection of mares, Robert. You generally have a maximum of about 10. What made you decide to be quite a small operation at Upton Viva? Because you've never grown massively. It's always been quite a kind of established but little collection.
Well, I think two reasons really. We sort of worked on what the facilities would actually cope with, both in terms of land. We had to put up buildings there were no stud buildings, and what could cope with if you had 2 full-time employees and some part-time assistants. And there's a sort of leap you do each time, as I wasn't going to work in the stud in a full-time capacity, as to how many animals can actually be coped with by one person, and what happens when they take a day off or get flu or get holiday. So which they have to, we hope is they're going to want holidays sort of after everything's been turned out and it's all going forward. So in the latter part of the year, because frankly, from about end of July through December, it's a relatively quiet time and a good time for people to have holidays. But the next leap up is to say, so actually, if I have a third employee, how many more animals would I need to spread the cost of that employment over? How much more land? How many more buildings? And actually, it just worked out at 10. So we said, fine, 10 is the number.
10 is the number. And do you keep, and just for listeners, you tell us about what you do with your foals: keep, sell, race, whatever. How do you work out what you're doing? Do you keep everything?
No, not at all. We as a matter of principle sell all the geldings, and we sell some of the fillies, and we leased some of the fillies. The ones we think that we might want to bring back into the stud one day, we lease, and get great pleasure from leasing. And to be fair, we register them all for GBB when they're born. Either if we sell them, this makes them more interesting to people that I have said, not one's torn between saying, I'm delighted that somebody's bought that for a decent sum of money, is now going to France. So slightly, or Belgrade Island, as the case may be. But this year we had two. So if we go back a number of years, the 2 4-year-olds that we sold, one a gelding and one a filly, both went to Ireland, both won their first point of points, didn't earn us any GBBs. The gelding actually sold for nearly 100,000 euros more than we achieved for it. And so we rather stopped selling yearlings and said, I think what we're going to do is sell 3-year-olds, because people have had to pay, even without form, a lot more for a 3-year-old, not surprisingly, because time has gone on. And there's a nasty cash flow moment when you say, not selling foals, going to sell 3-year-olds, so you have a gap when you have no proper income. But then you hope you're going to get well rewarded when they do sell for considerably more as 3-year-olds. And actually, 8 of our horses that we bred here last year won races, so we were very pleased. But and how you said 2 won their points in Ireland. 2 were fillies that we sold, but both won in the UK, both earning us GBBs, so we were pleased about that.
Good.
And 4 fillies that we'd leased, including Charisma Cat, all won GBBs. Charisma Cat's now won 70,000 of GBBs, so she's sort of heading towards capping it out at 100. Dream of having one that would cap it out at £100,000, which would be great. And what we really long to have, which would make an enormous difference both to British studs, which is a challenge for British studs, is that the herd is very small. The number of stallions is therefore limited compared to elsewhere. I've never understood why we give any GBB to mares who've gone to visit an overseas stallion. We should be doing more to support the UK-based stallions that there are here. But if we get it for geldings as well as for fillies, that would make a huge difference and make the prices better and be encouraging for everybody.
Robert, anyone would think that you might once have been chair of the National Hunt Committee because you have things. You have things to say on all of these things, which is really wonderful.
Well, if they make a big difference, I mean, it's a struggle to make a profit. You don't work in the stud yourself, and obviously that would make a big difference. And yes, indeed, GBB came in when I was chairman of the TBA National Hunt Committee, and we developed the elite mare scheme to try and encourage people with better mares to go to British-based stallions. So everything we're trying to do to expand the British-based herd, but actually the herd in the UK is not growing, and the one in Ireland is shrinking. So it's a challenge.
Yeah, it is. And, we're incredibly proud of the Elite Mare Scheme and GBB here. And it's wonderful to hear you talking about Charisma Cat having won 70,000 in bonuses, because that is it's a big amount of money for people. That kind of prize money for GBB races for fillies and mares is maybe life-changing is a little bit too much, but it makes a big difference in your training fees and in the kind of cost and upkeep and for everybody in the food chain. It makes a big difference.
Huge difference, and it means that the 2 years she's been racing, she's actually earned more than the cost of training her.
Yeah,
which is great.
That's really all you can ask for when you're an owner, isn't it? That you make your money back and you're having fun, and actually that's what you want if this is something that you're very passionate about.
Most of the people leasing fillies are doing it because they want to have a lot of fun without having the capital outlay. So if it ends up costing them nothing at all, or even that gives them a small profit, that is not what they got into it for, but is obviously extremely welcome.
And I was going to ask you about selecting stallions, Robert, because I'm really interested in that as well. Charisma Cat is by Nathaniel. How do you go about making your mating choices? And so for anyone listening to this who's kind of new to breeding and is thinking, oh yes, he knows what he's talking about, he's done all right with breeding, how do you go about picking what stallions your mares go to?
Well, for the most part, I go to stallions that have got proven success on the race course from progeny. That inevitably means that they mostly retire at 4 and 5, and you're going to wait 5 years. They're already 10 by the time you actually go there and make sure they are having success. Doesn't always apply like that, because there's some horses that have come from the flat, of which Nathaniel was one. Golden Horn is another, and we've just recently seen Cracksman go to York, another, where they've already proven themselves on the flat. But what they're producing is horses that the flat people aren't so particularly interested in, because they're slightly slower maturers. I don't mind, as a breeder of National Hunt horses, having horses not going to be a precocious 2-year-old or even necessarily a 3-year-old. So that's a lot of what we're doing. But we do go, I suppose I'm describing the scheme well, off-piste a bit occasionally and do something completely different. So this year we went to Ito, who stands at Yorkton Stud and is come from the finest German lines and has a great race record in his own line, and is quite a really interesting, completely different line, but it hasn't yet been present. So I hope he's a good producer. We don't know. And I went to both See the Moon and Study of Man when they were not such successes and not standing at such large prices. The down of Charisma Cat's next live foal is called Celestial Sea, and is by See the Moon, and the next one after that is a gelding who's been sold by Study of Man, and the mare is now back in foal from Nathaniel.
I mean, it's all a bit of a punt, isn't it? But actually, when you get it right and when it goes well, then the satisfaction levels are high. And just having chatted to a few breeders in this sort of scenario now, that it seems to be, it's a long game is a phrase that is used quite frequently.
The long game, when it goes right, it is absolutely wonderful. And Charisma Cat has been a huge pleasure. I've been lucky enough to have others that we've bred, which were
just in terms of building up your broodmare band, Robert, because you've really built this on the foundations from when you started. you've obviously got generations. So Tadara Angel was the dam of Charisma Cat, and now Charisma Cat, when she's ready, will hopefully come back into your broodmare band. How have you sort of amassed that herd and built the genetics and built the dams of your foals as well to create the kind of broodmare herd that you were really after?
Well, initially I would, and substantially still do, buying horses to race and then only bringing them in to start if they're really successful as race horses. So you buy ones with really good pedigrees. You and the breeder don't know if they're going to be good race horses or not. If they turn out to be good race horses and they've got a wonderful pedigree, then you bring them in to start. Otherwise, you don't. No good as race horses, but if at least you start with the right material, you've got a chance. There's a sort of theory that the top mares produce top foals. I have to say my experience is that they do, but not the first few foals. And maybe they just put too much, and the people on the flat say the best flat mares don't always produce the best foals because they put so much into their racing. So you can take the view that obviously the best mares produce the best foals, or you can take the view that they do, but not necessarily their first ones. And there's lots of people who prove it in different directions, depending on which side of the story they wish to tell. I mean, for what it's worth, Charisma Cat is her fifth foal.
Okay.
First four were not very distinguished.
Robert, you're very polite, not very distinguished.
I think the next four again are really nice.
Yeah, good. And actually that she's repaying you. You know, she's coming into fruition a little bit later. Let's put it that way.
She's coming to fruition a bit later, and actually the same applied to the dam of Long Run, Libertina. Her later foals were infinitely better than the early ones. So she had Long Run when she was 21 years old, which is unusual. And he far and away the best of her foals. Although Libertine, who was 5 years older, who was really one of our foundation mares, was obviously hugely successful because she won both at the festival and at the top, which is unusual for a mare.
Very unusual. I think it's fair to say, Robert, that you have bred across the spectrum, and you've bred a winner of so many important and interesting and different and fun races across the years that there is little that you have not achieved. But I'm sure you probably still have a burning desire for something, to be honest.
Totally failed to achieve winning. What I'd love to do is I passionately want to win the Fox Hunters at Cheltenham. With a homebred horse ridden by my son, trained here at Upton. We're not going to do that because he's retired.
I was going to say you'd have to get Sam back out of retirement.
I'm not training anymore. I'm not training anymore at Upton. So that will never happen. It was entirely as a result of that we ended up buying Noble Yates, because in our last attempt to get qualified for the Fox Hunters, we went to Wetherby in February, and there was Noble Yates.
And you inadvertently won a Grand National along the way, Robert, just like you do.
Well, just got very, very lucky.
Well, on that note, Robert Waley-Cohen, owner, breeder, and thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
I'm joined by Cheryl Burton, who will be familiar to many of you because she is the breeder and owner, along with her partner Julian, of Jax Junior, who has been a British hero this season, it's fair to say. He's given Cheryl some wonderful days at the racecourse and was bred by her at home. Cheryl, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to chat through quite a lot about Jax Junior, undoubtedly, but a little bit about you and your breeding career as well. We were just kicking off mic, and I said, wow, what a season you've had. How has it all been for you?
Bit of a whirlwind. It's really hard. Really, I always get really emotional talking about it because I think, for two ordinary people to have just started this process for, kind of a hobby really, and just wanted to have a go and give our mare a job to do because she was injured so young. And then it's phenomenal, really, isn't it? To have bred a horse as, with some talent like Jax Junior, when that, we haven't got any background in the industry other than having, played a part in a few syndicates with a few horses. It's kind of mind blowing, and Julian and I just continually pinch ourselves, really.
Absolutely amazing. So you mentioned Double Storm in passing there, who's the dam of Jax Junior. Do you want to give us a little bit of background on your ownership journey before you got into breeding and how you ended up then getting into breeding? You mentioned she got an injury. I know she was injured quite nasty, wasn't she? And so therefore became a broodmare.
Yeah, so she was only 6 when she was injured. She raced late because we were letting her grow into herself. We like to breed with the horses. We keep them out. We let them live out. We let them be horses. They're out 24/7 every day of the year. They have field shelters. They have mud mats. They have great food, and they have some rugs. But they are left generally to be horses, and to grow their own coats to protect themselves until, if the UK climate brings too much rain or too much snow, then we will put some rugs on them. But even the thoroughbreds, we leave it late to rug them. So we firmly believe in, allowing them to be horses.
And they're pretty good at looking after themselves when you let them, aren't they?
They are. It's amazing what their bodies, in terms of taking temperatures hot and cold, they regulate themselves and they manage it themselves. And as humans, we like to procrastinate and we like to throw rugs on them and spend loads of money. And I'm a firm believer in not doing that. It's literally, I think the most they ever get put on is a 200 gram at some point in the winter, deepest, darkest, wet winter. But yeah, so Double Storm basically had a deep flexor tendon injury. And so it was 50% chance of her failing on the track after that. And, when Bob Baskerville said that to us, he was like, it's your choice, but this is the situation. We were like, we're not going to do that. We're just not going to put her through that to end her day on a track when she's young and she's still vital and she's lovely. So that was that. We put in a field and we had this lovely field ornament for a long time. And like say, it was a decision made by Julie and I that it would be good for her to have a job to do. We already had Goldie, who is another horse that we were part of a syndicate. And when the syndicate broke down, obviously we wanted to make sure that he had a home to go to. So my husband said, I'll have him, and bought him off the syndicate because he didn't want anything, untoward to happen to him. So he's 24 now. He's living a fantastic life. And as much as he was an garden ornament too, he came into his own because at the point where we wanted to wean Lily, Double Storm, away from her foals, he would take on the mantle of surrogate dad. And so he put the manners in them, he looked after them, he took up that role amazingly. And I mean, he's out, he's by Slip Anchor.
Yeah.
But he's 18 hands. He's a huge foal, like a barge. But the gentlest giant. We've been so blessed. Honestly, in previous interviews, I said I've used that word a lot, but it's because I mean it. We really do feel blessed that the journey we've been on, we've had some fantastic support, some fantastic advice from people, and we've been very lucky and blessed with it all, really.
So when Jax Junior was born, tell me how you kind of managed the foal yearling store, going into training. Because I think when people start breeding, you can go to the sales and buy a horse that you think, okay, so then we'll move in with a pre-trainer and a trainer and get going from there. But when you have a little foal at home and suddenly you think, oh, crikey, what do we do next? How did you manage that journey, Cheryl? And how did you end up with Lucy as your trainer?
So I think a lot of it is about who you know and who's in your circle. If you're lucky, you have people around you that you can ask advice from. We were friends with Phil Middleton, who was a trainer. He was still training at the time. And we used some of his paddocks during a phase of when we lived in the Oxfordshire area. And he introduced us to Jamie Goss up in Banbury, who breaks and pre-trains our horses. So it literally is who you know and who you meet and who you actually get for me, it's people's energy. I read people's energy. I get a good vibe off them. I get good, I always take people's referrals positively and then I'll make my own decision. But Jamie and Rihanna are an amazing team, and they just do fantastic work. So it was really Phil Middleton's introduction, because that's where he sent his horses at the time, that started the pre-training with Jamie. And then through conversations with Jamie, and Julian spoke to a lot of trainers, but we were very careful that we didn't want Junior. We didn't know how good he was, but Julian has an eye for horses and their movement. He has a natural eye for it, and he saw Corto Star coming before anybody did, literally.
Lucky him.
I know. Well, he did. He put £200 on him to win the 3 main races, and obviously
Wow.
he did. But that was a long time before those 3 races. So he saw Junior come across the field one day, and he phoned me up and he goes, "We've definitely got a racehorse. We've definitely got a racehorse. He just glides." And that was when we first started to get that little bit of excitement in your tummy, that you're thinking, gosh, wouldn't that be amazing? So then the dreaming started, the conversations, lying in bed at night, that what if this happened? What if that happened? Wouldn't that be amazing? And so
I suppose, given that you trust his opinion, then that infects into you as well in a really good way, to be like, oh, I know that Julian can judge a horse and he's telling me that this is really good. I have faith now. Let's chat about the possibilities. How exciting that must have been. Gosh.
It was. And so it's kind of been a roller coaster from there on out, really. We asked Jamie's advice. Julian spoke to some of the big trainers, but we just didn't want Junior to get lost in a large yard. Because, yes, we didn't know how good he was, but if he was mediocre, he would have got lost in a larger yard. So we spoke to Jamie, and Julian has some ideas, and he suggested Lucy and a couple of other trainers. And so we spoke to them all. And I mean, to be fair, honestly, Naomi, we've had 3 horses, and 3 horses who have all been given the opportunity to go into training is statistically really unheard of. It's a bit crazy. So yeah, that's how we came upon Lucy. We had a conversation with Lucy. And she said, well, yeah, we'll give it a go. I mean, Lucy doesn't take just anybody. She was quite, she asked lots of questions. She spoke to Jamie, and she trusts Jamie implicitly and with his opinion. And the rest is history with Lucy, really. We love her approach. She's got a lovely yard in Newmarket, and we're very happy with how she handles the horses.
Good. And I think just taking a point away from what you were saying there, Cheryl, it sounds like you do your research, and you're not just waving your finger in the air and saying, right, that one. You're kind of, background checking sounds a bit strong, but you know what I mean? You're kind of being certain, you're taking advice, you're asking other people's opinions, you're speaking to those people yourselves, you're asking a lot of questions, you're kind of making sure that you are comfortable with the journey that you're sending your horse on, and for you as owners as well, going through that's all part of it, I think, isn't it? Particularly, when you're going from being a breeder into an owner, which is a very common thing, and people listening to this, a lot of them will be both owners and breeders, I'm sure. It's a real journey, and actually when you're finding your way down that path with a horse that has been born with you and that you adore, making sure that you feel comfortable with it is so important.
It's hugely important. And, we're all humans, and people have to get on, and we don't get on with everybody, do we? It really is about having the right attitude. Julian and I, we're fairly easygoing, kind of, we're like, until we're not, I suppose. They like everything else. It's like, as long as we can get involved with the conversation about which races we're potentially going to go to, what the route is for the coming season. And that's the way Lucy likes to work. It's a team effort. Everybody gets a say. Everybody comes to a conclusion that we're all happy with together. And I think that's really important.
So I presume it was quite a short conversation about, shall we go to Cheltenham, shall we go to Aintree, in terms of the experience that brings for you. Tell me about how that felt to have your little horse running there as the one that had popped out for you at home, and then suddenly you're off to the Arkle. I mean, God, honestly, Cheryl, it's like a dream, isn't it?
Yeah, the excitement was just immense. Julian didn't sleep the whole time. He doesn't sleep. He is a statistician. He reads everything. He looks for everything. He is brilliant at that side of things. Lucy relies on him hugely for that because obviously she's busy with everything else. So he's very good at supporting her with information on all of the horses, etc. So it was just mad. It's like, our horse, our call in the same sentence. What's going on? And we knew it was a big ask. It's a big ask for any horse. So
Of course.
yeah, just to be able to take your horse there and run in that race was huge for us. And the fact that Junior is very flexible on trip as well as ground. So it has opened up options for us. So yeah, we're very lucky. But we have two other.
I was going to ask you that question next, actually, if you've got anything else coming behind. Go on, you have two others.
So he has a full sister, so another Jack Hobbs.
Another Jack Hobbs, okay.
And he has a half sister who's frontiersman.
Okay. And how old are they now, Cheryl?
So she's 6, Jax Bell. She's his sister. So she ran last season a few times, but really, this is really going to be the season that finds her out. She's a different beast to Junior. She's much more of a stayer, so we're quite excited to see her over 3 miles, really. So I mean, Junior will get 3 miles eventually, but at the moment, we're playing in the shorter races, which he's doing. He's done extremely well at. Like I said, we're very lucky with him. His flexibility has been astounding, really, in terms of 2 mile and 2.5 miles. But yeah, she definitely is more of a stayer. She's one-paced. And so we're excited about that. And we've got some friends who have come into a syndicate with her. And we're doing the same thing with Diva, her sister. And yeah, she is a sassy mare, let me tell you. We called her Diva, and I shouldn't have done, because that's what she's turned into. But she's only 3.
Okay.
So she is going into pre-training. And as we did with Bluebell or Jax Bell, she will be pre-trained, sent to Lucy for a month to 6 weeks, at which point Lucy will know whether or not she's ready to continue with training or come back home and go back next year. We're hoping, because she's very precocious and has been in her growth. Last time the vet came, he said, "How old is she?" I said, "How old do you think?" He said, 4. She's 3. She's a big mare for her, compared to her sister, her half sister. So we're actually really quite excited about her as well. So with a view to, if all things go well, we'd like to see her juvenile hurdling this season. So.
Perfect. I was just about to make a nod to the juvenile hurdle program and the developmental program in general for it's really taking off on the national hunt side, and I think it's really interesting to see the growth of that as people dipping into it as they learn more about the availabilities and the opportunities for all of that as well.
Yeah, and I think we've got a horse that has. Looking at her going across the field and doing laps the other day with her sister, she just seems to find it effortless too. So she's a bit like Junior in that regard. So obviously the dam is bringing something to these horses, as much as we've got amazing genetics from Jack Hobbs and Frontiersman. I think the mare is definitely having something to say in there.
Absolutely. The mama line is feeding in, that is for sure, Cheryl, by the sounds of it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And they've all got big ears. So it's really funny because everybody talks about Junior's ears, and they're so expressive. And he's never known what to do with his ears. So he pins them, and he's not being like horrible. He just does it like he's never known. I don't know if it's my fault, because he was my first foal. And I used to rub his forelock and play with his ears and stuff. And yeah, he's just never known. He's never been a normal horse with his ears. You can't read him by his ears, apart from when he's racing and they're pinching forward.
I was always taught big ears, kind horse. It was was always what I was taught.
But that doesn't bear out with Diva, because she's sassy and she chases Julian out of the field constantly, and she's terrible around food.
Okay, well, maybe there's an exception to every rule, right? So
I was told that big ears mean good jumpers.
Okay, well, there you go. Okay, well, we'll roll with that one, hopefully.
That bears out.
Absolutely. Well, we will really look forward to seeing their prospects over the upcoming season. Good luck with Junior as well. We wish you all the very best with him. And we'll look forward to seeing you and Julian on a racecourse, no doubt, soon, Cheryl, or at a TBA event, perhaps. But thank you ever so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat and hear a little bit more about your journey. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
That's all for today. Thanks so much for listening. You can follow us on Instagram at thetba.gb, and don't forget to tag us in your posts. We're always here to help, so do give us a ring or drop us an email at info@thetba.co.uk if you need anything. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, and we really hope that you'll join us then.